Greetings. I am Tom Earl, and this is my year of depth. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here today, sharing your greatest gifts, your time and energy, means the world to me. I hope you know that in this moment you are valued, you are loved, and you are appreciated just as you are. Why is this my year of depth? That is a question that we are going to be exploring through a new series called Deeper Gratitude. I believe that our most important work happens when we go deep on what matters most to us. Instead of trying to go wide and only go shallow, instead picking a few things to go deep on. There is where we can find our greatest contribution, our greatest impact, but also our most fulfilling work. So throughout the rest of 2021, throughout the rest of my year of depth, this series is going to bring to you different guests, different people I admire, I love, and that I want you to connect with and learn, first of all, where are they going deep in their life? Then they're going to share with you where they'd like to see you go deep. And lastly, what fuels that deep work they're doing through their gratitude. Now, like I said, we're going to use this intro for each one. So if you're hearing this and thinking, I heard this episode last week, don't worry. Same intro, different guests. Now, all of these episodes were recorded through June through July 2021. The year is always unpredictable. And so I say the date of when this was recorded so you have context, just in case if I release this in October or something like that. It lets you know we didn't know what was going to happen in October. Although I'm releasing this in October or November, all of these were released in the context of June and July 2021. Okay, that's enough for me. Without further ado, let's jump right in. We are joined next by one of my favorite people that I have the honor of calling a friend. And we are graced by Dr. Kikanza Nuri-Robins. And today is June 23rd. How are you doing, Kikanza?
I am very well and excited, a little anxious about the next half hour of my life.
Putting your trust in Tom with the record button on. Yes, understand.
Indeed. So I am trusting that you want the relationship to continue after this half hour.
Well, I'm for the long game, so it wouldn't be worth sacrificing for just 20 minutes. How would you, for the folks who haven't had the honor of getting to count you in their circle, how would you describe yourself in 6 words?
In 6 words. My 6-word autobiography is, I was not what they expected.
And for folks counting on their hands, 6 words. I love it. And it's, as you might have imagined, different than everyone else's that has shared so far, which I love. So what does it say about you, or how did you come up with those 6 words?
I chose them as part of an exercise of writing the 6-word autobiography. And I chose them because it started with my parents. I'm always a surprise. I wasn't what they expected in a daughter. When I work with my clients, I'm usually not what they expected. I'm a Black woman. I'm a baby boomer. And people tend to have expectations of what I am or who I am or what I think and believe. And it's always a little surprising because, I'm one of those, but not that kind. And so it is, I came to it after doing a weekend retreat with Hadassah, a group of Jewish women, Jewish Zionist women.
If I can put this question into the space, is some folks might, if that's their autobiography, might start to feel almost like a victim, if you will, or it might impact their self-worth. And for those who don't know, this is my perception, that you have a strong sense of your self-worth, of who you are. And so if you don't mind sharing that being your autobiography and having a strong sense of self-worth, if you could just give us a little insight into that journey, into how those two live together in such a wonderful way.
Well, I'm old, and so I've had lots of practice. And I had to reach a point where in my youth, people saw me as potential. She's smart. She's not hard to look at. We can mold her into this really wonderful thing. And no one ever asked me what I wanted or whether I wanted to be molded. And then and oftentimes I'm always up for an adventure. And so I said, okay, I'll go here. And then at some point I'd say, all right, that's enough. I don't want to be that anymore. Or I don't want to be as much of that as you would like me to be. And they'd get upset. And I said, no, my life, I get to decide. And no, you don't know what's best for me. And it took a long time in my younger years to realize that I was okay the way I am and that I could get better. I want to get better, to be excellent, but I get to decide what, better at being who. And I get to decide what better looks like. And my job is not to mold myself into your expectations. My job is to be clear and comfortable about who I am and to let you know this is what you get when you're with me so that you can make a choice about whether you want to be here or not. So it was incremental growth. It involved some trauma, some pain. And it involved recognizing that I had to accept myself. I was never going to be good enough for anyone if I wasn't good enough for me.
I'm just letting that one linger because I love that. If you're able to, for folks who want some of that energy in their life, the accepting who I am, knowing my self-worth, being able to create boundaries and to, hold them when people push against them. What might you share with someone who's listening, like, I want some of that?
What I have run into sometimes is people wanting to be like me. And you'll never get to be like me, but you can be your best self. And it is important to know who you are. It's important to know what you like and what you don't like and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And it's important to get a real sense and comfort with who you are. And it's important to be able to say, that's a good idea, but I don't want to do that. I spent time in my 20s when I wanted a relationship, and I said, I need to have a relationship with myself. So I would take myself out for dates. I would take myself to the movies. I would take myself out to dinner. I would take myself to the theater because I reasoned that if I couldn't enjoy my own company, then how could I expect anyone else to? If I wasn't clear about what my opinion was about something, then how could I engage in a conversation? I was 25, and I remember some friends of my parents were asking me, what did I think about? What did I think about? And up until that time, I had been parroting what I thought a good revolutionary should be thinking about. And I realized I didn't have an opinion that was mine, and I better get one. So now I have lots of opinions.
I love it. Oh man, I'm trying to be so disciplined in keeping it in the time. We're gonna have to call it. We're gonna have you back for a full episode if
I'd love to.
There we go.
I love your questions.
You know, the thing that I love about asking you questions is you actually listen to them. Some folks, I'll ask a question and it's just autopilot answer, but I always have to be on my toes because you're going to actually hear it. And if there's something a little that I haven't thought through all the way, or if I'm like, I have a question behind the question, or it's going to be brought to my attention. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, it probably will. And my favorite response that interviewers hate is that answer.
So I'm going to be aware of that. That's when I know I've gone too far. So speaking of going too far or going deep, where are you going deeper in your life?
Well, I am writing the last chapter or the penultimate chapter in my life. And I'm thinking about legacy work right now. I'm thinking about what do I want to leave as a legacy. I want to do something, be something, say something with great intention. And so I have had the privilege of teaching and working with people and writing, and people saying, oh, that made a difference. I really loved your book. Or when you taught me that class, you changed my life. But I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't do it with intention. And that's what I'm thinking about now. One of the things that I have great passion for, that I've had for all my life, is sewing and creating and being an artist. And I have never taught anyone how to sew. Usually the people who ask me, they'll say, will you make this for me? No, I sew for me. But I've always said, no, I won't make it, but I'll teach you how. So I think I've been asking the universe the wrong question or making the wrong request, because what I want is a student. I don't want a customer. I want a student. I want someone who wants to learn and with whom I can share. And last week, someone came to work with me in my studio who wanted to learn something. And it was like, whoa, I finally got to teach somebody something that I just love so much and which will help her.
I love that. And I think you might have answered, because I had a question while you were sharing, but I was listening still. I didn't go into my, stop talking so I can share. So I think I might have heard the answer, but I want to ask anyways. When you said, I wasn't doing it intentional, that surprised me, because you're a very intentional person. So I'm wondering if you can clarify what you mean.
Sure. So my intention is to do excellent work. My intention is to learn and to whatever I'm doing, to do it well, to do it with competence and to do it with care. And so my intention is to have an excellent deliverable. My intention has not been to change your life. My intention has not been to say something so extraordinary that you'll remember it forever. My intention has not been to pay attention to my footprint. My intention has been to pay attention to what I was offering to you. So now I am still intentional about presenting you with something excellent that you can use. And I'm also paying attention to the footprint. What is the residue of what I'm doing?
I love that. Paying attention to the footprint. That should be, if you're going to write another book, put that on one of the 10 titles to choose from.
I never said that before, but it makes a lot of sense. What I say about leaders is that about myself, the mark of my leadership is in my absence, not in my presence. So that's what I'm doing. I'm making sure that there's something in my absence that will be of service, that will be of good for someone.
So I'm happy you clarified, because at first how I heard it was I wasn't being intentional, but instead it's I was being intentional, but now I have a different intention.
Intention. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My intention has changed.
Mm. The other thing, and it made me a little teary-eyed when you said it, I felt like an emotional ripple go through me. I thought you were going to say, I'm finishing the last chapter on a new book. And I'm finishing the last chapter, the penultimate chapter on my life.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience is most people don't say that out loud. What brought you to... Go ahead. I don't even need to ask.
I'm a death doula. I shepherd people in the end of life rituals and activities and thinking and intentions. It is one of my goals to normalize death. We get really excited about birth and the promise of birth, but there's no guarantee about birth. But I can guarantee you that if you are living now, if you are breathing now, you will die. And yet we don't talk about death as a normal subject. We get maudlin, we get depressed. We said, don't be morbid, it's morose. Everybody's going to die and no one will talk about it. And if you know you're going to die and you don't know when, I think that it raises the bar on intentionality. So what have you done in the last hour of your life? Did you just waste it away looking at memes, letting TV watch you? Did you do something with intention? So I know, based upon actuarial statistics and my family, that I don't have many more years. And so I need to make sure that they make a difference.
This is what we should have the whole podcast conversation on. So many questions I have. I'm going to selfishly ask a couple.
Sure.
Do you think this past year has changed that for a lot of people?
We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I'm looking forward to what's next because a lot of people are still focused on reclaiming a life that no longer exists. And a lot of people are trying to make up for what they have lost in the past year and a half. And so we haven't figured it out. Simple things like we've learned that you don't have to be in a building in order to do work effectively, and that many of us can work even more effectively in this medium, in this video platform. And so we've got to figure out how to make this work. And many of my clients are talking about hybrid situations. I don't know how that's going to work. So we'll see. We'll see.
Here's my next question, and I'll give some context for it. I might not even need to give context. So I run ads for people. And so I was writing two different ads for somebody. One was around nonprofit work, and it was around people trying to create awareness for the psychological impact that Black people, and this was specifically Black men, have to go through of constantly having to be aware of their mortality from violence potentially being perpetrated against them. And then I wrote another ad that was talking about, people don't think about their own death. It's this thing we have. Nobody thinks about it. And I was like, writing these two after the other made me think, is that essence of privilege, not having to think about our own death? Is it different in society about when we're forced to think about death?
I think it is. And I think about other cultures other than us in North America, where death is more present. And I think because we in this country, particularly, whose lives are long and healthier and filled with more resources than most of the rest of the world, it is definitely a function of our privilege that we don't have to think about death, because it's probably not going to be today. And yet there are so many people around the world who don't know, who have lived with war their whole lives, or live with threats to their health their whole lives. Mothers who know that if they have 3 kids, maybe one of them will reach adulthood. We don't think like that in this country. So yes, it is a privilege. It is a mark of our privilege.
It's not making me curious. I wonder then if the same resistance people go through to confronting their, let's say, white privilege is the same almost denial or resistant or fear to thinking about the privilege of life, that I might die, that I'm going to die. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What an interesting question. Well, I think that one of the reasons that people resist the idea of white privilege is that when it's shared, it's usually shared as a judgment, like something's wrong with you because you have white privilege. And we beat people over the head with the fact that you're a straight white man. What a terrible person you are. Well, you didn't ask to be a straight white man. What you're asking is, well, what does that mean in this cultural context? And a lot of people think privilege means resources, privilege means money, but we're talking about the privilege of power and the privilege of access. And I haven't heard it taught well in those terms. And I think that it's also important to recognize that everybody has some kind of privilege. I have the privilege of being an old woman. And so I can play the old lady card and be helpless. And you have to help me. I get to talk, and you have to at least pretend like you're listening. I have the privilege of being big, scary Black woman. And so nothing is all good and nothing is all bad. And there is a shadow side of everything. So if we recognize that everyone has some kind of privilege, and some people have more privilege than others, and are unaware of how they use that privilege, I think then we can have conversations that pull people in to say, I get it now. So what can we do about that? So I didn't realize it. My older brother, only 15 months older, is the first grandchild on both sides of the family. He is the golden boy in the family, even now, everybody's favorite. He had no idea that he had so much privilege, the privilege of being the first boy, the privilege of being a boy, the privilege of being the oldest, the privilege of being the wanted one, until he lived with me and he talked to my mother every day. I didn't, because she wasn't nice to me. And he would hear my mother talking to me, and he said, "Does she talk like that to you all the time? Why does she say that to you?" And I said, "Because she likes you better." And it wasn't until he saw my life in my context at my kitchen table that he began to understand the great privilege that he has experienced all his life, didn't notice, and was very unaware of it. And so I think we have to help people get it. He didn't know that we, the other siblings, got less because he got more. He thought that everybody was getting what he got. And so I think our conversation about privilege has been tainted with too much pain and anger, and that we have caused more pain and anger and hammering people about the idea of privilege without sharing it in a way that says, I see you, I care, I want you to care too. Let me help you understand what you might care about.
I love this. So I was selfish during this interview, went totally off script. Are there any of the questions that I sent ahead of you that you would feel like that remiss if I didn't ask? Because we're
not at all, because I really don't like scripted questions. Yeah. I love the questions that come from your heart. Yeah. I love the questions that reflect your thinking. I love the questions that reflect a deeper understanding. I love the questions that engage us in conversation. Yeah. I think that's what makes a difference. We make a difference, one conversation at a time. And so I want the questions to reflect how special the time we spend together is.
For folks who want to spend more time with you, particularly if they especially want to do it through your books, where can they learn more?
Well, the book that I am most proud of, I wrote with a friend. We'd been friends for 50 years. And it's called Fish Out of Water, which ties into my 6-word autobiography. I was not what they expected. I didn't always fit in. And so we wrote a book about creating an inclusive culture, creating a culture of belonging, creating a culture that acknowledges that some people do feel like fish out of water. And what you can do if you find out, if you realize you are a fish out of water, how to learn the cultural codes, what you can do if you are managing or mentoring a fish out of water to create a more inclusive environment. And they can go to my website and take a look at all the books there. And I encourage you, I invite you to take a look at that one and then tell me what you think.
And if I might be able to add on my 2 cents, there is a section in there around how to, in my own words, quit gracefully. And I think a lot of us are experiencing that right now, of frustration potentially with jobs that aren't honoring this transition that we're going through. And so we've all done it in the past where we just burn the bridge and what do they call it? Scorch the earth.
Yeah.
Kikanza's got a great chapter in there that I think even if you just buy the book just to read that, I really would recommend that y'all check that out.
Absolutely. Leaving well, really important.
Leaving well, that's it. So you'll find that in the show notes where you can grab that link. But
let me leave you well.
Yes. Otherwise, Kikanza Nuri-Robins.com and then click books. But otherwise, we'll have that in the show notes. Kikanza, we have to have you back for a full hour and a half episode.
I'd love to.
Cool. Thank you, Kikanza. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of Deeper Gratitude. I hope you appreciated getting to learn where my guests are going deeper, their invitation to you on where they'd like to see you go deeper. And I hope it had offered some insights into what people are doing emotionally to fuel this important work. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this series. Please reach out to me at Tom Earl Artist, tom@tomearl.com, or if you'd like to go deeper in your marketing and your Facebook or Instagram ads, you can find a ton of free resources by going to tomearl.me/ads, tomearl.me/ads. Please reach out to my guests from this week. Let them know how much you appreciate them, support their work. It has truly been an honor having you share your greatest gifts with us, your time and energy. And I look forward to you joining us next week. As always, I'm wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.